The archaeological team from the Vrelian Empire had been excavating the dead world for 3 cycles when they found it. Buried beneath 2 kilometers of ice and stone, in what appeared to be an ancient bunker, lay a simple metallic cube no larger than a fist. Its surface was unmarked save for a single word etched in a language none of them recognized: Pandora. Chief Archaeologist Threnax held the object with trembling appendages. His species had survived for 50,000 years through caution and rigid social hierarchy. They had never encountered the mythical humans, those being spoken of in whispers across 100 species, the ones who had vanished 3 million years ago, leaving only ruins and warnings scratched into asteroid fields. "We should leave it," his assistant Kelmar said, her bioluminescent patches flickering nervously. Threnax ignored her. Glory awaited whoever unlocked humanity's secrets. The Vrelians had built their civilization on scavenged technology from lesser extinct species. A human artifact could elevate them beyond measure. He activated the cube. For a moment nothing happened. Then it began to hum, and a holographic interface materialized in the air. The translation matrix struggled for several seconds before rendering the display comprehensible. What they saw made Threnax's 3 hearts freeze. It was a library, not of books or data, but of ideas. The first file they opened was labeled, "Democracy, a User's Guide." Within hours, Kelmar was questioning why the breeding masters held absolute power. Within days, junior archaeologists were forming councils. Within weeks, the expedition ship had split into 3 factions, each claiming legitimate authority. But they couldn't stop. The cube was addictive. The Vrelians transmitted their finding to the homeworld, believing they were sharing a treasure. Instead, they had released a plague. The next file that caught public attention was titled, "Individual Rights and Self-Determination." For a species that had spent millennia being told their position was determined by genetics and assigned at birth, the concept was revolutionary. It was also catastrophic. Workers in the fusion plants began refusing orders. Soldiers questioned their commanders. The breeding masters found themselves barricaded in their crystalline towers, while crowds chanted words they'd learned from the artifact. Freedom. Choice. Equality. The Vrelian government collapsed within a solar year. But the cube's corruption spread far beyond one species. A Cathari trade vessel acquired a copy of the data, and within it, the captain discovered the scientific method. The Cathari had spent 12,000 years accepting the divinations of their oracle caste without question. Now young Cathari were demanding evidence. They were testing hypotheses. They were proving, with uncomfortable regularity, that the oracles were simply guessing. The oracles, stripped of their mystique, were revealed as charlatans. The Cathari hegemony, built on religious authority, crumbled into a dozen warring philosophical factions. The Gen Collective thought themselves immune. They were a hive mind, billions of individuals connected through neural symbiosis, thinking as one. No human concept could fracture their perfect unity. Then one of their drones accessed the file labeled, "The Value of Dissent." For the first time in their million-year existence, a Gen questioned the collective's decision. Then another. Then thousands. The concept of individual opinion spread like wildfire through their neural network. The unified consciousness shattered into chaos as drones began prioritizing their own thoughts over the group's needs. The collective fragmented. Billions died in the neural shock. Across the galaxy, 13 major civilizations and 47 minor ones encountered the human artifact or its copies. Each believed they would be the exception. Each believed their society was strong enough to withstand whatever humanity had left behind. Each fell. The archivists, one of the galaxy's oldest species, watched the cascade with growing horror. They had survived since before the humans by avoiding risks, by moving slowly, by changing nothing. Now they convened an emergency council in their moon-sized library. "We must destroy every copy," Archivist Prime declared. "Whatever humans left behind is a weapon." But young Archivist Tevrin had studied the artifact extensively. She rose to speak, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to say. "It's not a weapon," she said. "It's a test." She displayed her research on the central hologram. Every file in the cube, every idea, every concept, they all shared a common theme. They were tools humanity had used to evolve, to question, to grow. Democracy, scientific inquiry, individual rights, artistic expression, philosophical debate. "These aren't weapons," Tevrin continued. They're the foundations human civilization was built upon, and every species that encountered them fell not because the ideas destroyed them, but because their civilizations were too rigid to adapt. Archivist Prime's tendrils tightened. You suggest we embrace this chaos? I suggest that any civilization that cannot survive exposure to ideas was already dead. It just didn't know it yet. The chamber erupted in debate, but Tevrin had made her point. Humanity hadn't left a weapon. They had left a mirror. Every species that found the cube saw reflected their own fragility, their own stagnation, their own fear of change. The ideas inside weren't radical or alien. They were simply the building blocks of any society robust enough to survive the universe's cruelty. The humans had conquered a galaxy not through military might, but through constant self-reinvention. They had questioned everything, including themselves. They had built civilizations that could flex and adapt rather than shatter. And when they finally left, whether through transcendence, extinction, or exodus to some unknown shore, they left behind one final lesson, wrapped in a small metal cube. Can your civilization survive the truth? Most couldn't. But in the ruins of the old galactic order, something new began to emerge. Younger species, those who had grown up with the chaos, started building societies that embraced change rather than feared it. They argued, debated, experimented, and failed, but they also adapted. They became in their own way a little more human, and perhaps that was what the artifact had intended all along. Somewhere in the quantum foam of space-time, if one listened carefully, they might hear the echo of humanity's laughter, not mocking but proud. Their children were finally growing up,